Hey folks, welcome back to the Digital Retribution channel. On this episode, we're going to have a little bit of a look at some of the books that I've picked up in the past month. So I hope you stick around and see what I've got to talk about and the authors that I have picked for this episode. Let's go. Okay, so I've got basically one manga, a couple of older books. I've got a couple of other bits and pieces here and there, and just one book that's about movies. I've got my other screen set up here so that I can talk about some of the authors, because some of them I don't know too much about, but we'll go through it together. So the first one that I picked up is a manga called Manhole. So this is by Tetsuya Tatsui. This was his first manga that he did was in 2002. And it was called Dud's Hunt, and this was the second one that was printed in Young Gungan magazine from 2004 to 2006. I'm not sure if this is the first time that it's been printed in English, but I had not seen it before this publication. The back of it says here, a haggard naked man wanders down a busy street in the town of Sasahara. Out of nowhere, he collapses, struck down by filariasis, probably mispronounced by me, so I apologise. Tormented by a parasite that's as baffling as it is deadly. This is only the start of an epidemic that has the potential to wipe out the entire Japanese population. Most people think the disease has natural causes, when in reality is part of a disturbing and merciless plot. It's a race against the clock in Manhole. So I like Junji Ito. I don't so much like manga that's, like My Hero Academia and the more, I don't want to sound like a geek, but like the more mainstreamy sort of stuff. I go for the horror stuff because, this is a horror channel and that's what I'm doing. So this sounded appealing. Amazon does that thing where it says to you, because you like this, you might like this. And I've picked up a couple of other mangas that I really, really enjoyed, like a couple by Ketsuo Ume's Orochi, I think was one of them, and a couple of others. And Manhole was suggested. They've not all been great suggestions. I got one that was called PTSD Radio, which I didn't find so great, but we'll see what this one is like. We'll get into that very soon. So the next one I'm actually revisiting some old books that I used to read way back in the day when I used to work in Sydney and live in Sydney. I had like an hour each way train trip to get to work. I lived in the suburbs and worked down near Circular Quay. And basically my entire trip, we're talking before iPhones, so you weren't sitting there looking into your Black Mirror the whole time. Back in those days, I just absorbed books by Stephen King, which I didn't read that much of because I'm not the biggest fan of his writing. I like his ideas, but I don't like his writing so much. But Shaun Hutson, James Herbert, and Richard Lehman were my three go-tos. Guy and Smith I'd sneak in now and again. Shaun Hutson is also responsible for me liking crime stuff. You can sort of see just here, there's some hard case crime novels just there, and he's responsible for that. It's weird. It's some of his horror stuff leans into crime, and then he's got some crime stuff as well. And his crime stuff led me to read stuff like What's Color of Money and some other stuff by Walter Tevis, which then led me to The Queen's Gambit, which I really, really liked, and loved the TV series when it came out, because it was like, I like chess and I like board games and all of that. It's funny how like you evolve as a human being. So Hutson's written about 30 novels. He's a big metalhead, cool dude. And I picked up 3 of his novels in various forms, in various states of being. So this is Erebus. Wakely was just a small farming community, but something was terribly wrong there. Something wrong with the livestock, with the people. Something unspeakable. perpetuated by the mysterious Vandenberg Chemicals Group, who sought to protect its interests and secrets no matter what the cost to the people of Wakeley or indeed the rest of mankind. And who would have thought that red meat could be so deadly? It kind of sounds like he's repeating a bit of James Herbert's The Fog, but if you're gonna copy something, you may as well copy something that's great. I don't think it's a direct copy, but I certainly like the idea of there being like a poisoned meat as an issue. I don't know if he's a vegan or anything. He's done some pretty cool. He's done some pretty cool stuff. I mean, like he did a lot of film adaptations. He was the one that did the UK film novelization of The Terminator, for example. And he's also had a film made of one of his books, Slugs, which is like, like every author in the 80s, in the late 70s, early 80s had their animal horror books that were a couple. There was like Guy Smith had his crab books, and James Herbert had his rats books, and Hutson had his Slugs, which there was two novels. There was Slugs and Breeding Ground. The next one I've got of his is one called Heathen. I love these old 80s covers as well. There's a really good book by Grady Hendrix, who's a horror author, and it's called Paperbacks from Hell, and it's all about the strange paperbacks that came out in the period that these came from. So Donna Ward was shattered when her husband was killed in a car crash, devastated to learn that another woman had been with him, and disbelieving when the police informed her the crash had been no accident. How could her beloved Chris, a best-selling author, have any enemies? How long had he had a mistress? And who are the mysterious men in the photographs she finds? Suddenly Donna has to face up to the fact that she knows less about her husband than she thought. But as she searches for missing answers to her questions, Donna moves ever closer to danger, for she herself is being stalked by the people who killed before and will do so again. And then she'll come face to face with the Sons of Midnight. I like these sorts of novels, and these sorts of stories for that matter. There's a really cool one by Lee Nichols called Servants of the Twilight that kind of has a similar vibe to it. I always find it funny when authors make characters authors, because it must mean that they just have so much spare time on their hands to do fuck all, and be attacked by people. So Heathen, that's that one. And the last Shaun Hutson one I've got is this one. Now this is actually my favourite Shaun Hutson one. This is Victims. I think that this book would make an amazing movie. I really do. It's well written. It's a really fun story. Some people are born to be murder victims. Fact, not fiction. Frank Miller, no relation to, The Dark Knight Returns Frank Miller, special effects man for countless horror films, knew that. Blinded in a bizarre accident, but then given the transplanted eyes of a murderer, Miller finds he can spot potential victims. However, in their search for a maniacal killer, the police ignore Miller's help. As the body count rises, they are forced to work with him as Miller himself finally becomes a target for the slaughterer. Will he stop the carnage or become part of it? Like, 10-part Amazon series, 2.5-hour film. I'll take either of those for this. Great book. Easily my favourite of Hutson's. There was a period where he sort of turned this weird corner where he went from sort of really finding his writing voice, and it was around this time that I reckon that he did it. All of those authors did. There was like all of a sudden there's like this period where they just sort of flip, and all of a sudden they find their voice and everything sort of sounds like that afterwards. And I feel it was around the time of Victims. When was that published? I'm just having a look. 87, yeah. So 87, yeah, the stuff before that were fun books, but everything after it, sort of like from Assassins and Captives and Renegades, they all he really found his footing with those ones. And yeah, totally worth it, I should say. Yeah, Victims, get it. So the next one is actually, speaking of films that are books that are adaptations of films, the next one I've actually got is based on the movie Terrifier 2. and it is the novel Terrifier 2. This is by Tim Waggoner. Yep, Tim Waggoner. Tim Waggoner's written heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of books. He's got like a whole pile of series. I'm just looking up while I'm here. Like they don't even on Wiki. They don't even like I'm stealing from Wiki. They don't. I mean, yeah, they don't even have like they've got a list of all of the books that he's made, but there's just so many of them. But yeah, he's done novelizations for X, Pearl, and Maxine, which I found that out today, and now I'm going to have to go and buy them. He did a novelisation of the slasher film Halloween Kills, the sequel to Halloween, obviously. Novelisation of Resident Evil, the final chapter. Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage, and Terrifier 2. So, of course, it has been 1 year since the sleepy town of Miles County survived the murderous spree of demented killer Art the Clown, but little do they know the nightmare is about to begin anew. Resurrected by a sinister entity, Art is back with an appetite for murder and mayhem, setting his sights on the recently bereaved teenager Sienna and her younger brother Jonathan. The streets are about to run with blood, and Sienna must somehow survive this gruesome Halloween night and discover how to defeat a brutal and unforgiving killing machine from beyond her nightmares. I loved film adaptations growing up. Like, as much as I was reading Shaun Hutson and stuff like that, whenever there was a novelisation version of a film that I liked, I would go straight for it. So I had so many books by Alan Dean Foster and stuff like that, who were doing heaps and heaps of novel versions of movies. And, you know, it's Terrifier, so I had to give it a go. While I'm not necessarily the greatest fan of the films, I couldn't resist getting this, and obviously very soon I'm going to have 3 more books by Tim Waggoner in my collection, because I've just discovered that he did those Maxine books. So great, thanks Wiki, thanks for spending my money, Wiki. Now the next one is by an author who was introduced to me by one of my old cohorts from the Nerds of Oz podcast, Shane. His name's Duncan Ralston, and it's one of those things that I hate. Every time you see somebody talk about him on YouTube, they talk about extreme horror. Oh, it's so extreme horror. Realistically, if you don't like horror, any horror is going to be extreme. If you know, like, it's such a relative thing. It's like comedy. You can't say the comedy legend if you don't find that person funny. So, having said that, Womb, like, was a very, very interesting book. It says extreme horror on it. Maybe I'm not just as, maybe I have a thicker skin or a more reliable nervous system than some people do, to not be so horrified by the extreme horror of it. But this book is called Halloween. Love that cover. Look at that cover. That cover looks like an Ed Repka color of a Metallica album or something. I really, really love it. It's so cool. Ralston has done heaps of novels. Ghostland, which I think is kind of like Jurassic Park, but with ghosts. Gristle and Bone, Video Nasties. He says that he's influenced by everyone from Richard Matheson to Jack Ketchum to Irvine Welsh, Chuck Palahniuk, Bret Easton Ellis. And I can kind of see that in his books. This is, look at the writing on the back of this. How am I ever going to read that without any sort of light source behind me? But yeah, it was, it's had a lot of praise, this book. You're going to have to find out what it is yourself, because I can't read that unless I put it right up to the camera. On October 31st, 2001, no, I can't read that. Yeah, that's terrible. Black writing on a black book when you're in a dark room. This was not planned well. But I really like Duncan Ralston's writing. It's very, very easy to read. I find it easily to consume, like Richard Lehman's stuff is. Like, Richard Lehman's work just emptied out of the book and into my head. And I think that Ralston's very similar to that. Nice chunky book for him as well. So looking forward to reading that, because I really like his writing. I've got a bunch of his stuff up there that I haven't got around to reading yet, but I'm rereading Womb to do a video review of soon. So yeah, we'll work our way around to it. But yeah, so that's Halloween by Duncan Ralston. Okay, the next one was one that it's again on that Amazon suggesting thing. This is from Aaron Beauregard, who's written about 25 books. This is called Yellow. Now, I don't know if he's sort of pulling the piss out of Giallo a little bit by just calling it Yellow and it being like a crimey sort of a novel. I love this cover. It reminds me of Joe Michael Linsner's art for some reason. Maybe it's by Joe Michael Linsner. I don't know, but it's I just really really dig that cover. I'm just seeing if the cover is by. No, it's not. But yeah, it's so this is Yellow. It says Oliver Fitch has a troubling issue. He lives in a state of constant terror. After purchasing a convenience store in a once civil society, the streets around him have rapidly devolved into utter lawlessness. They are now festering with sinister gutter scum that only live to harass and intimidate him. His pathetic profits are gouged under the threat of violence, and there isn't a damned thing he can do about it. Because in a city that has no rules, where the sun never shines, the authorities are no help. In fact, they're equal part of the problem. The relentless fear of confrontation is so obvious that even Oliver's wife Lydia has grown to resent his spineless existence. The absence of bravado opens a door to a horrific home invasion that leaves the miserable pair savagely maimed. From there, things only get worse until the criminal leeches have taken everything, until there's nothing left inside but hate and the gnawing anger for revenge, until a switch finally flips and Oliver realises that they all have to die. That sounds awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. There's a really good book, an Australian book called Davo's Little Something that's sounds like a similar sort of thing about a butcher from Bondi who he and his friend go and see a band at the old entertainment centre one night, and his friend's murdered, and he's beaten so severely that it sort of makes him not as makes him a little bit psychotic, a little bit sociopathic. And he sort of starts to develop this thing where he's just going to take out everybody who's after him. I wish I could remember the name of the... Robert Barrett? Does that sound right? Anyway, this sounded pretty good. It was one of those Amazon suggestions, so I grabbed it. I love this cover. I love the fact that like they've called it Yellow and they've given it like the little 15-cent price sticker on it. Look at me, can't do the mirror thing. And yeah, it's a great cover. It was suggested, and I thought that I couldn't resist giving that a bit of a go. And it came under their extreme horror section. Now, I actually ordered a whole pile of books last month, and this is what came. And unfortunately, I have got some stuff that came out of whack, which is I hate it when that happens. It is what it is. What are you going to do? Blah blah blah. And what we have here is. I've already got the first book of Clown in a Cornfield, which is about to be made into, or has been made into a movie, is about to come out. Clown in a Cornfield won the 2020 Bram Stoker Award for Superior Achievement in Young Adult Novels. So this is young adult horror. I guess Cesare must have grown up with Goosebumps and things like that. So unfortunately, I bought 2 and 3, but only 3 turned up. So, Clown in a Cornfield 3, The Church of Friendo. So, yeah, clowns are in at the moment because of the Terrifier movies, so we expected that. Yeah, I guess it's just more of Friendo the serial killer. It says here, evil never dies, it multiplies. Tired of being hunted and seeing innocent people hurt, Quinn Maybrook has come to believe the only way to beat the horror of Friendo is to take justice into her own hands and stop his followers herself. Leaving her old life behind, Quinn heads out on a mission to mete out justice the only way she knows how. Little does she realise that in a different cornfield, in a different world, Friendo has become far more than just another clown. He's a way of life, a world that no one can escape, at least not alive. So yet again, only Quinn can step up and put an end to the madness once and for bloody all. Didn't know this was a hardcover version, and it's funny. I think I paid about the same for paperback, so I'm pretty stoked for that. Great cover. I haven't read the first one yet, but it won an award for a young adult novel, and it's been made into a film. My biggest criticism of movies at the moment is that people aren't adapting original work. And like my last podcast called Hate Fucking Hollywood had me bang on about that all the way through it. So I'm going to support originality wherever I can. And the fact that this looks like it could start off as a new franchise of a new clown, like Terrifier has, I'm prepared to give it a go. You know, it's everybody keeps talking about how let's bring back Freddy Krueger and let's bring back a Jason. It's like no, we've, as much as I love those guys, we've moved on. Let's start a whole brand new franchise with brand new characters and just start from scratch, please. So I'm going to give this guy a go wherever I can. And yeah, so that's a nice hardcover version of Clown in a Cornfield 3, The Church of Frenda. Now, the final book that I've got here isn't actually a novel. You might be able to see behind me, I have a whole pile of stuff over here. These are almost all movie books. Like I've got a couple of Marvel comics and stuff here, but all along here is all making of and movie books and stuff like that. Down here is like making of Marvel movies. But these are pretty much all, you know, got like Tarantino books, and that's a makeup book and all sorts of horror stuff all over here. So obviously that means that I like those sorts of books. I like reading about movies and what goes into making them and where the subgenres of horror came from. Like I find that really interesting. I even like documentaries about horror. You know, I love like the Video Nasties documentaries. I loved Not Quite Hollywood, the Australian one by Mark Hartley. Yeah, all of that sort of stuff. Even The Search for Weng Weng, which is sort of more about Filipino films. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, like there's a whole pile of cool stuff about films because films are important, you know, like they are super important. So I grabbed this and like it starts off with like the cover is great and then it goes from there. Satan on the celluloid. In the celluloid, sorry. I'm reading it off the reflection of the OBS thingo there. But yeah, so this book, I love the packaging for one thing. It looks like an old VHS tape. And it's even got the good old green horror sticker on it. I've actually got a pin somewhere for that. So it states here that this is part of a home video collection. I don't know if that's like just at the beginning of it or if I've missed others in the series or what. Evil cults, demonic possessions, black magic. The 1970s were gripped by an obsession with the devil and all his works. This book explores 100 devilish movies that blazed across the screens of the drive-ins and grindhouses of that decade. They were a product of their time. The counterculture of the 1960s had soured with the brutal actions of the Manson family, sparking fears of cults and hippie mysticism. Christian fundamentalism was on the rise, and the satanic panic of the 1980s was just around the corner. I need to learn to read slower so that my mouth can catch up. But for the 1970s, the devil stalked the screens as a figure to be feared, invoked, exorcised, and worshipped. He possessed young girls, demanded blood sacrifice, and caused nuns to cast off their habits and indulge in their most blasphemous and erotic desires. From the heavy hitters like The Exorcist and The Omen, to their drive-in favourites like Race with the Devil and the Brotherhood of Satan, to foreign entries like Suspiria and The Wicker Man, this book takes a deep dive into the demonic movies that thrilled and terrified audiences of the 70s. That sounds like a winner to me. It's text heavy. It's not like your usual sort of these sorts of books. This is literally like 100 movie reviews. And it goes through everything. As it says, Cry the Banshee, Blood on Satan's Claw, Invasion of the Blood Farmers, Touch of Satan. You know, it really... Scream Blackula screams in here. So it really goes through all of that sort of pre-satanic panic, religious hoo-ha that came into cinema quite heavily. It's a good chunky book. I think it's going to take me a while to get through that one because it's like 100 movie reviews, but that's pretty cool. Love that cover too with Baphomet on the cover. Yeah, looking forward to getting into that. That'll be going up into this area up here somewhere. I've got more over on this side as well. I've got like far too many books about movies, if I'm honest. And that's it. So like I said, I was supposed to have more than that, but but Amazon being Amazon, I have not necessarily received everything that I would like to have received. So there will be I won't do another video for March, like March mail call. I'll do when they come. I'll do it for next month instead. I am going to start doing a few book reviews on here as well as some other stuff. So stick around, and we'll talk about some of the books that I actually get to read. I'm going to start off with Duncan Ralston's Womb because I'm rereading it for about the 4th time at the moment. I want to really make sure that I have absorbed it properly. It's a pretty interesting book. Thank you so much for watching this video. As usual, like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you can. That would be great. And stick around and watch more videos to come. I'm getting the hang of this YouTube stuff slowly, so you'll have to bear with me as time goes on. Thank you so much for watching again. Don't forget to check out the website digitalretribution.com. It's where I have over 400 movie, even board game and book reviews on there. Some comics and manga on there as well. There is the Digital Retribution OZ Instagram page. I'll put all of these links below. And I'm on X, I'm on Blue Sky, and of course here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. You have been fantastic. I appreciate you more than you could possibly imagine. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.